Hello students, today we'll start with a new chapter, that is Principles of Heredity and Variation. This is second unit, and this second unit has two chapters related to genetics, that is Principle of Heredity and Variation, and molecular biology, molecular basis of inheritance. So genetics, the term genetic was given by William Bateson. He is also known as father of modern genetics. William Bateson gave the terms, other terms also, like homozygous, heterozygous, allele, F1 and F2. Genetics deals with heredity and variation. What is heredity? The transmission of characters from one generation to another generation is known as heredity. So heredity is transfer of character from parents to offspring, or from one generation to other generation. Offspring. What are offsprings? The product of sexual reproduction. The product of sexual reproduction, and it is biparental. Siblings. What are siblings? Siblings are the offspring of the same parents, like brothers, sisters. Clone. Organism developed from single parent by asexual reproduction are known as clones. So asexual reproduction is monoparental. So product of asexual reproduction are known as clone because they are identical to their parent. Variations. Variations are differences present among individuals of the same species, siblings, between parents and offsprings. Next is reasons for variation. Why variations occur in the population? So reasons for variation are crossing over. Crossing over takes place in Packetin phase of prophase 1 of meiosis 1. So crossing over, mutations, types of gamete formed, chance fertilization of gametes. These are the four reasons for variation. Now we will discuss pre-Mendel work on hybridization. Pre-Mendel work on hybridization performed means before Mendel which scientists perform which type of work. So under these we will discuss three scientists: Colwriter, John Gauss and Nodin. Colwriter worked on tobacco. He developed fertile interspecific hybrids. Colwriter developed fertile interspecific hybrids of tobacco. John Gauss, he also worked on pea plant like Mendel. He crossed yellow seeded and green seeded pea plants and obtained yellow seeded in F1 generation. So he crossed yellow and green seeded plants, pea plants, and obtained yellow seeded plants in F1 generation like Mendel. And in F2 generation, some plants were yellow and some were green. So his results match the Mendel results. Nodin, he also worked on pea plant. He reported that hybrid carry characters of both the parents, but the character of one parent remain hidden during F1 generation and they express themselves in the next generation, that is F2 generation. So Nodin reported that hybrid carry characters of both the parents, but character of one parent remains hidden, and this hidden character appears in the next generation. Era of Mendel is 1822 to 1884. He is also known as father of genetics. He proposed laws of inheritance in living organisms. He was born in Silson village in Hazenkopf, Australia. He joined Augustinian monarchy of St. Thomas at Brunn, Austria, now Brno. In 1851, he went to University of Vienna to study physics and botany. In 1854, he came back to monastery and served as a teacher. In 1856, he started experiments on hybridization in pea plants growing in the monastery. Worked for 7 years on hybridization experiments. He worked on 7 pair of pea varieties or 14 varieties. For example, he took 7 contrasting characters, tall and dwarf. So one was tall plant and one was dwarf plant. So one variety is of tall plant and one variety of dwarf plant. Likewise, one variety of round seeds and one variety of wrinkled seeds. So in this way, he worked on 7 pairs of varieties or 14 varieties. He published his work in 1865 in publication named Annual Proceedings of Brunn Natural Science Society. Heading of his work was Experiments on Plant Hybridization. Mendel's work was remained unnoticed till 1900 due to following reasons. So Mendel work, he printed his work in 1865, but his work went unnoticed due to many reasons. Some of the reasons are, he used mathematics in biology, and this was not acceptable to the scientists at that time. He used mathematical logic to explain biological laws and to analyze his results, but it was not accepted by the biologists. Second, biologists' minds were preoccupied by Darwin theory of evolution. At the time of Mendel, Darwin also gave his theory, so their minds were occupied by Darwin theory of evolution. Darwin published his famous book, Origin of Species, in 1859. This book had great impact on taxonomy. Next, Darwin was not confident about his work because he failed to prove law of independent assortment, that is 9:3:3:1 ratio in hawkweed plant and bean plant. He was able to prove this law of independent assortment in pea plant, but he failed to prove this law in hawkweed plant and bean plant. According to Mendel, each character is controlled by two factors. Each character is controlled by two factors. Nowadays we call genes. So each character is controlled by, according to Mendel, two genes. Two factors of a character separate from each other during gamete formation. But this was not accepted by the biologists. This was not accepted by the biologists, that two factors separate from each other at the time of gamete formation. Next, Mendel could not provide physical proof for existence of the factor. He could not tell of which material this factor is made up of. Where does this factor exist? He could not explain this. He could not explain or provide the physical proof for existence of the factor. Mendel could not provide composition of factor, that is, from which biochemical this factor is made up of. At that time, during the time of Mendel, circulation of publication was less. Print media was very less active at that time. So, till 1900, the work of Mendel went undiscovered. Rediscovery of Mendel work was done by three scientists independently: Hugo de Varies in Holland, Correns in Germany, and Teschermark in Austria. Rediscovery of Mendel work was done independently by three scientists: de Varies, Correns, and Teschermark. Hugo de Varies published Mendel work in 1901 in publication Flora.